There's more room up in the front. For those of you in the back, if you want to ask a question, it would be easier to ask it from the seats up here for the microphones. Okay. Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Callahan, President of Edco, and I want to welcome everyone here to the Edco OPIA City of Oxnard Industrial Business Forum. And the purpose of this event was so that the industrial and business community would have the same opportunity that the city previously put on, that businesses were, of course, invited to, but it was mainly the community. So this is your opportunity to be able to ask questions or make any comments to the city panel here. And first, I'd like to recognize our Edco board members that are here. If you could please raise your hands. And if everyone could just give a round of applause for them. And elected officials here, Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez did come earlier, but unfortunately her husband is ill, and I do not see Mayor Flynn. He may show up later. He did say he would be here, so, and then I think that's it. Brian. Oh, and Brian, of course. Well, he's on our board. And Brian McDonald and Mr. City Council Member McDonald, thank you very much for coming. And I would like to, before we introduce the panel here, I'd like to first just tell you a little bit about, most of you know who Edco is. We're the Economic Development Corporation for the City of Oxnard. We've been around for over 21 years, and we try to attract businesses to the City of Oxnard and assist businesses currently in the city with expansion or retention needs. And OPIA, a lot of you may not know what that is. That's actually an offshoot of Edco, and it stands for the Oxnard Plain Industrial Association. And we have just a brief little commercial here for OPIA. If you could just turn and look at the screen or the left. That's just a little brief commercial for OPIA. As you can see, it's to educate you on the incentives that several businesses should be taking advantage of and may not know of. It's to advocate and let you know of proposed legislation that's going to be coming forward so that you can actually have a voice in the matter. And it's also to assist with all your permit needs. So there's information on the front desk about OPIA. I encourage you, if you're not already an OPIA member, which there are several in this room right now, to pick up some information and consider joining OPIA. So again, I really want to thank the City of Oxnard for agreeing to represent all of the department heads pretty much here that are related to the business community. And I'd like to first introduce from the left. First we have Ashley Golden. She is the planning manager for the City of Oxnard. And every one of you should have, when you came in, received a list of the names of people. And unfortunately, Dan Rybert over here on the right is from utilities, so he's not on that list. But any questions that you have related to utilities, Dan should be the correct person that should be able to answer those. But you do have a list. If you don't have one, we have more copies out there. Which department heads are represented here. I apologize, we were going to have a table here, but we were afraid with the table that people would fall off the edge on the back and we'd kill some city employees, and we don't want that to happen. So next to Ashley, we have Robert Shanian. He's the Development Services Manager. And then next to him is Matt Winiger, the Development Services Director. Then we have Roger Brooks from Code Compliance. And the police chief should be okay. Okay, so if you have any questions about safety, just hold off on those until she's able to make it here. And then, of course, we have the city manager, Greg Nyhoff. Yeah. And then next to him, we have James Williams, the fire chief. Yes, everyone should hold up their things. And then we have Greg Abiel, who he's got a really long title, but Coupa issues. If you have questions about Coupa, several industrial companies have to deal with Coupa, so he is the best person to ask about that. And then we have Kimberly Horner. Kimberly Horner's with the former redevelopment agency. So any properties that the city now owns, that the redevelopment agency, I know several businesses have asked me about this. Kimberly's the right person for that. And then economic development issues as well. And then we have Tammy Gutierrez. She also has a different title than what I think we're going to be asking her questions, and that's for business licensing. And then we have Dan Radberg, like I mentioned, and he's all utilities. So that is the panel, and again, how this will work is you can either, there are work cards on the back tables there. If you wrote any cards down for questions that you would like us to ask for questions on your behalf, please pass those either to Jennifer Wojtek over here with Edco or Chad Guy over there. We also passed out cards with both Chad and my cell phone number on it. If you want to text us the questions, we can ask the questions for you. But definitely, I really would encourage everyone to ask their own questions, but if you feel more comfortable, we will ask them on your behalf. So you can ask really any questions, and you can just direct it to a specific person or just ask a question, and I think actually the city manager probably could figure out which individual of his staff would be the most appropriate to answer it. So first I'd like to actually ask the city manager if he'd like to say a few words to this group.
I'd love to. Yeah, just pull it up there. Well, good evening. Good evening. Is it working? Hello?
No, take Elizabeth's.
If I yell at you. I'll just speak very loud to you tonight. It is just an honor to be here, and I think, you know, we've got a lot going on in the city if you're keeping tabs on it, a lot of transformation, a lot of transition, a lot of things that I think were less attended to in the past, trying to get things right, put right back in place, and then grow from there. We do believe business is a critically important part, and I will tell you personally, without a strong business community, a growing business community, a community dies. And so this is very important. We've got interim people in here, there's some retiring people. I think Matt's going to retire one of these days pretty soon. But the whole bottom line to it is we're really focused on making some commitments to you, and we as an organization have been working as a leadership team to say, you know, we need to commit to some things to you when it comes to customer service, when it comes to really acting on your behalf, because the bottom line says we work for you. And we intend here over the next probably 6 to 10 months to really come out with a program and plan that says we're committed to that, and if we aren't, then you need to hold us accountable. The one-stop shop conversation is really a very global thing, not just one-stop shop. It has to do with how we provide customer service. And I think the one thing I've always said, and for me, is we figure out how to get to yes, even if the answer is no initially. And I think we're going to get there. I don't know, maybe you all have great experiences, and I don't have to say we're going to get better, but we are. I can assure you of that. It's a matter of where you think we stand today. We only get better through hearing from you. I've been very involved internally, so I haven't been a chance to get out to see you. I think you are the strength and health of our community when it comes to job creating, putting dollars in people's pocket that are recirculated within our community. So you're so important to us. I know my economic development, it's actually Elizabeth pretty much does everything for us. Kimberly is still wrapping up redevelopment. Until then, you're going to get planners, you're going to get Elizabeth. We need to up that from the city's perspective. So we're happy to answer questions. We're happy to take comments, just to simply comment on how well we do or things that you think we can do better. And we're going to have some impacts. I will tell you, we're going to look at a utility rates, master planning. There's some increases we're going to be proposing. We need to make sure you're at the table, you're a stakeholder that we're listening to on impacts to business and so forth. So that's just one thing, but all sorts of kind of transformation, transition going on within our organization as a city to be a better provider of services and to be better customer service driven. So thank you. I probably took way too much time already. So we'll not let anybody else speak. No one else gets to speak, so fire away.
You can ask him all the questions.
I'll defer. I'll send him around. You bet.
Okay, so how this is gonna work is you can just raise your hand, or like I said, if you've already filled out a card, you should have those, or you can text one of us. So does anyone have any questions or comments for the city panel here?
Hi, my name is Aurelio Ocampo, and I am a new business owner. Actually, in the process, I'll be closing on the 10th. In terms of the escrow for the building, I'm gonna get. My question to you would be, how are we attracting the young small business owners to the city, or can we do something to, my field is a very creative field, and when I was looking at the downtown area for a building, it was hard for me to find the very specific building that sort of goes along with the style of business that I have. And I think if we're going to attract that type of creative business owner, I think we should be a little bit more in tune with that type of person, that type of creative person who is looking for a specific, not just a new building, not just even in terms of architecture. Those little details, I think, are very important for people, for certain people, not everyone, but for certain businesses. So I think those details, it's in the details on how we attract these people. So if anyone can answer that, or it's really just a comment. I love this city, and I think you guys are doing a wonderful job. And it's just a comment, and to think more about those things and how we are getting those specific people, the specific creatives for the city. So that's, thank you.
I'll make just a very quick comment. I'll make just a very quick comment. Thank you for investing in Oxnard. Yeah. And I will say those are comments. I mean, your comment was pretty focused on downtown, and it's in the paper recently, $6.1 million that is non-designated for downtown, which means creativity should flow freely from you. Don't think that your government, when's the last time you asked your government for business advice? I say that with a little bit of sarcasm, but on the other side of that is we need your advice on how do we do that? How do we do that? And I just think there's a great opportunity for downtown with $6.1 million, that we don't squander it and invest it poorly. Let's do something to really change who we are. So I appreciate the comments, and I think I'll see if anybody else want to comment on that? Kimberly, you good? Yeah. We'll let you talk, Bill.
And so it's, as the city manager said, again, thank you for investing in our city, in particular in our downtown. And we do have $6.15 million coming to our downtown. And it's, as the city manager described, we don't want to squander or waste that money. So we will be having a series of public meetings to discuss how those funds will be allocated and programmed for our downtown. With regard to retaining and attracting smart businesses to our city and to our downtown, we'll be working closely with Edco as well as our Oxnard Downtown Management District to do specifically that, to attract, retain, and recruit the type of businesses that we think are appropriate for Oxnard.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions? Can you hear me?
Hello.
I got a question. I'd like to get some clarification. You mentioned with economic development with Kimberly and my wife and I have had, between us and our parents have had a business in Oxnard since 1976. So we've been here for a long time, and since my wife and I have been doing it, Elizabeth has been our go-to. If I've got a problem with permitting or whatever, even with stuff that probably doesn't even pertain to her, she's been the go-to. So I'd like some clarification. Is that going to remain that way, or is it something that's getting moved into the city? So that's my question. Clarification.
It feels awkward sitting out there.
Come on
Feel like
down.
it's more like a shooting gallery or something. So I think that's a great question, and I think that there's really an important word right now called transformation and reorganization. So at this particular time, the city contributes toward Edco a fairly significant amount of money. And at this point in time, because Kimberly's still wrapping up economic development, she's my economic development person. And it takes about 100% of her time to do that. So for the time being, that's exactly the way we'll work it. Those two will be teammates working together with our planning department, with these folks, put that together. But for right now, I certainly support us continuing the same way that we've been. But I think economic development needs to be enhanced and improved here from our perspective, how we help retain businesses, business visits. You find out so much information on visits. So for this point in time, and certainly our budget's coming up, so that'll be a council decision ultimately. But at this point in time, I plan on supporting Edco with funding when I present the budget. Okay, Chief? City Council
It's okay with me.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, we're a small family business that actually moved here from Canada about 8 months ago, and without Edco, we wouldn't be here. We had a number of delays setting up business for a manufacturing business, somewhat complicated manufacturing business. We come to a high high unemployment area to fulfill our visas. We're Canadians, although just approved for green cards. So we're on our way to becoming Americans. We found it incredibly difficult working with the city to efficiently move through the process. And if we couldn't have called Elizabeth countless times to say, oh, what about this? What does this mean? We've now gotten this, what does this mean? Honestly, at one point, we actually had a conversation about maybe this wasn't the place for us to be, and our visas were tied to here. So it meant that we would have to go back to Canada. So I would really caution you all really strongly to keep Edco strong. And I think just like the other family here, to not have a single person to go to who understands how to resolve these issues. We're all here busy running businesses, and it's not our business to know how to run the city. It's our job to make sure we hire people, expand our businesses, and support the city in terms of taxes and permitting and all those fees that we pay. So I would really caution you to be really careful. To take away Edco would be, I think, a dramatic negative to anybody running a business.
Just can I ask you a question? Was that mostly with planning or any particular area that you ran into that?
Honestly, everywhere.
Thank you.
And everybody was lovely. I'm not saying anybody was difficult. It was just quite frankly, we'd go and say, oh my gosh, there's a fire issue. Oh, but we didn't understand how the code worked. Or, oh my gosh, there's something else you need. Or, oh wow, we didn't understand this small little rule. And then it was playing, I joked after a while we were playing snakes and ladders. Half the time we were having on a ladder, and then, oh my God, we found a snake. And we often would be almost back at the beginning. So we went to the city, I think 3 or 4 times. I think in the end we brought Steve with us twice. Because we just now, maybe we were talking Canadian. And there's certainly a whole bunch of very specific things to Ventura. But I would say it touched everything from police. You know, we had issues, we produced a very expensive product, we were concerned about security. You know, we didn't understand the cultural issues in terms of just how this town worked. Right through to fire, to planning. And everybody was lovely. No one was not lovely. It just would be, we took probably conservatively, it took us about 4 man-months of time that we didn't calculate in our business expenses to make that happen. And I see people nodding. It's just a horrendous expense that you don't put into your budget. Oh, I want to move to a new location. Well, you probably can't move there for 6 months, right? It takes, so you're going to pay 6 months of rent, delaying hiring people, all those things.
I want to make sure we get other opportunities. First of all, thank you for standing up and being truthfully, just absolutely coming out with the truth. I will tell you that I hope we can work Elizabeth out of a job. Or maybe just hire her permanently to work for us instead of directly. No, I will tell you, I'm very accustomed to having someone independent of our staff to assist business because you feel like you trust them more than telling the organization things. So I think that's something that we will always look towards having, is a relationship with someone you as business trust you can go to, when sometimes you're just not going to trust your government. And I appreciate the honesty, and I'm not going to make excuses. I moved here from Colorado, and every place is like coming from a foreign country when you come to California. So there is much more legislation and laws in California than what I even had in Colorado. I mean, I always thought how easy it should be to pull California companies to Colorado because I had all sorts of things I could offer, and it was 18 months start to finish, you're done. I mean, here, there's a lot more that goes into the process. So, not that we can't get better. It is our goal here, and we've been working. These guys right here have been talking a lot about how do we improve that process? How do we not have you go from place to place and take day in and day out multiple, responses from us. One day it's this, you send it back, fix it, it's another one. We're not going to be perfect, folks. The whole planning process isn't a cut and dry black and white system, but we do know we can do better. So thank you for your honesty. Appreciate it. I can know where I went, and that's we do a lot of outreach. We listen to the business people. We make sure we're closely connected to Edco. But I tell you, we don't have it right now. And that's the honest truth, but we'll create it as part of the Strategic Planning Council. Do you want to add anything, Kimberly?
I just do want to add that I'd like for everybody to know too that the former redevelopment agency always had a close working relationship with Edco. We couldn't do some of the things that we did without their assistance, as well as they couldn't be successful without our assistance. And I do see us still going down that path with that continued relationship. One of the first things that we'd like to see happen in our city is that we come up with an economic development plan. But we probably won't get there until we have finally wound down the former redevelopment agency, and we'll probably start looking at having a plan in place or discussions about a plan come 2016. Because we do know that it'll take us until then to finalize some of the things that we're actively working on in terms of the wind down. But please know that we do have a very positive working relationship with Edco, and I hope that we're able to continue that.
I have a text-in question. One for Jerry Williams. I will get away from that for a second. But what is the strategy for dealing with gangs and graffiti cleanup?
I would like to introduce the police chief, Jerry Williams, who has been quiet.
I can always count on my boss to make sure you know that I came late. So, quite frankly, I'll be honest, I do apologize for being late. I did come early. I went back to work, got caught up in work, got caught up in the basketball game a little bit too. Wisconsin is winning. Oh, I'm sorry. I know. Okay, right. So I get like the bad sign in the back. So what are we doing to address graffiti and gangs? As you all are aware, despite what some people may say or think about gang injunctions, that has proven to be one of many effective tools in us being able to better manage the gang population that's here in our city. It's also important to note too that with the injunction also comes the responsibility that if people or my officers can no longer attest that someone is in violation of gang activity, in areas that they're not supposed to be wearing certain attire, that we also remove those people from the gang injunction too. So it's not a life sentence. If one decides and chooses to make a difference in his or her life, we will attest, and we've taken 80 plus people off the gang injunction. So from the graffiti standpoint, we have a graffiti action program. I don't see a GAP person here. But that's proven to be effective, and as soon as community members pick up the phone and call and make a call about graffiti on a location, we are sure and swift to remove that. Prior to removal, we do take pictures and then catalog that information so that we have that for detectives when they have time to follow up on the follow-up. So hopefully that answers the question.
Hi, my name's Don Disraeli. I own Kanaloa Seafood, and we just moved to Oxnard out of Santa Barbara after being in business, my wife and I, for 30 years. And we needed to expand our business, and we found a great place to come to in Oxnard. And I also wanted to thank Elizabeth very much for all the help that she gave to us in the permitting process, and that all went very well. And I really want to support Edco, and that's one of the reasons we're here tonight. Thank you, Elizabeth. And I also have one other question for the police chief. Is there a reason right now why there are so many police giving tickets to the semis by Deerdorf?
So the only thing I could guess or imagine, we have a motor unit that's tasked with multi-tasks. So typically when we have complaints, we typically assign resources to address that complaint. To be honest, I'll have to go back and check with my motors to find out if and why. But I would assume that it's as a result of some type of complaint that was made in the area.
Yeah, I was just curious because they have the semis, they don't have any place to park other than down in the middle of the street while they're waiting to get in. And for the last 3-4 days, there's been 2 or 3 police cars there handing out tickets, for 2 or 3 hours a day.
So I'm guessing, I don't have an absolute, I'll have to get back with you on the answer and respond, but I would guess that it's a result of someone's complaint.
Okay, thank you.
You want me to stand up here with you?
No.
Oh, okay.
Welcome to Oxnard. Hey, so just so everybody knows, I think we need to clarify one thing here. All of you think Elizabeth's great, right? Right? Elizabeth, how do you make money? Does the city give you any money?
The city does.
We think Elizabeth's great too. Matter of fact, we need to do some significant funding for this. Wow. Starting to feel bad, like taking all the good attention.
My name is Mark Vukovic. I have a local business here, and I'm located on 711 Mountain View Ave. 711 Mountain View Ave. And had you had a chance to talk to Greg to come visit my heliport ADA parking spot? Well,
That didn't sound quite like that's going to be an entertaining conversation. ADA heliport parking space, is that what you said?
that's correct. And I guess part of the process is I decided to build 6,500 square feet of a canopy in the back of my building, and I went through the planning process, which was tedious as heck. Unfortunately, I wasn't smart enough to call up Elizabeth and help me through this process. Matt, you helped me out in one issue, thank you very much, and that was on the parking permits that we were required to spend almost $21,000 for parking because I was going to increase my space by 6,500 square feet worth of canopy, and it was just to cover storage, $21,000. Anyway, Matt helped me out and made great sense of that wasn't a good thing, so we didn't have to pay it. But in the planning process, using a local architectural firm, we argued the point because what the inspector did was he came out and he put a little level on my parking spot, and at the time it was 2.7 degrees to 4 degrees, and the ADA requires a 2% level parking spot. And we argued the point that if we had to do it to code, we would actually have to go into the street, which is Mountain View Ave. And that didn't weigh, nobody agreed with that in the planning side of the house. And then we argued the case one more time with the architectural firm, and again, it didn't go anywhere. So guess what? I didn't know what else to do. Unfortunately, I didn't raise the question up to the next level of management, which I wish I had, but by that time I was so frustrated with the town, I wanted to get it over with, and I built this 18 inches from the road to get up to 2 degrees to park for ADA. So now I have 18 inches of 4x4 truck traffic to get up to the 2 degrees parking for ADA. And what happens if you do actually park there, because we have this much space from our building to the road because it was built in 1968, there was no rhyme or reason, and in fact it's more dangerous now than what it was before. So when a business has a problem like that, is there any recourse now? I'd like to come back and say, listen, Mr. Town, you really need to take it out because it's more dangerous. I know ADA threatens everybody. They threaten me, they threaten the town, they threaten the planners. What can we do about that?
I certainly would be happy to take a look at that one with these folks. I will tell you, ADA holds us responsible for making sure that those laws are followed. They don't care. They will come after the city, absolutely. But you know, there are things as reasonable. There are appeal processes. They take time. I know the whole ADA laws are make sure that we provide access for everyone. And yeah, some of them are really difficult and tedious. I'd be happy to hook up with you and see what you got there. So if you want to hook that up and see what we can do. I think there's a message I'm going to steal another moment from you all, is this is our city, yours, mine, ours, and please don't take the conversations that we have here as it's us versus you. That's one thing that I walked in the door 8-10 months ago and said, wow, there is a definite friction between members of this community and our staff, and we don't want it to be that way anymore. We do not want it to be that anymore. We've got our changes to do. We have our culture to change, understood. But don't sit by and just say, why do you do it this way? We need your help for ideas. We really do. I think that we feel like, reinvest in us and we're going to reinvest in you. We could have a far better partnership than we've had. So don't give up on us. And not to say you have. I'm looking at a lot of you that I'm not saying you have, but we plan on changing for the good. But we want to change right. We want to change to the needs of the business community. So don't give up on us. I'm going to be tapping you for input into, as we create our strategic plan, how do we do things that make sure we make a difference to the business community. One of them will be, and I hate to say it, Mr. Ryberg's over the end, there will be some significant rate increases. We're looking at it for wastewater. It's been 1990s since we last raised rates. We need to get you early, and you need to be stakeholders and converse with us. Just like if you had a business and had to invest in something that was ready to fail you, that's what we're looking at. We have a wastewater system, BBB rating. If you know what that means, you don't want that. That means higher interest rate. That means that not many people have trust in our ability to pay those. So those are things that we need to be partners with. We want to explain, we want you to understand and help us. Maybe it's smoothing the rate increases out, whatever that is, helping and analyze it. We just need to be, I need you not to give up on us and say, it's worthless working with the city. So thanks for not giving up on your helicopter ADA parking space. Don't give up on us. We fully intend, and Ashley's kind of just taken over as the new planning manager, that she's really trying to formulate along with the team changes to how we do business and planning. When's the basketball game? Who knows the score? Sorry, can I interrupt this or anything?
Yes, you can.
31 all at the half? Are we done?
And I do apologize, I'm not a sports fan, so I didn't even know. Are there any other questions or comments?
I just have one text and one that's for Greg Nyhoff, of course. And it's, to what extent are you willing to consider contracting out city services to improve service and reduce costs, especially with the deficit that you've just learned of?
Do you want to answer that, Matt? No, I don't have an answer to that. So, I've always been a believer that if my organization or city government can't offer a service competitively, then we should look at other alternatives. And I actually look and challenge my organization and the departments that are here, is if you can't provide at least the same level of service for the same cost as we can get in the private sector, then maybe we should be looking at another way of doing business. So let me say this by, you know, a lot of it's gonna have to do with our prioritization at the council level, but I challenge these folks is to prove to the private sector that we can be as efficient and effective as what you can. So my answer to that is somewhat in between. Am I willing to do it? I've done it in a lot of different places. And so I'm very willing to evaluate that, but I actually use it as a challenge to my organization to figure out how to be more efficient. And I will tell you, I think there's a lot of ways for us to be more efficient today. So it's a challenge out there. I think that we need to take a good hard look internally and look for waste. And we're gonna have to do that first and foremost with a $10 million deficit. So am I open to it? Absolutely. Always have been. You don't get two questions.
The first
You're a
one wasn't-
newbie. That's
well, I
why
guess it
you're
wasn't a
saying.
question, I'll raise up. But no, actually, you're talking about waste in the city, and the one thing that I do miss about Santa Barbara is Marburg, and the difference with waste management. I think what they do up there seems to be a very good service compared to what I've seen down here. Obviously, I have seafood, we have a different type of waste. What we did in Santa Barbara with Marburg is we did composting, we did recycling, and we had waste. The biggest waste stream that we had, just because the business was styrofoam, so we invested actually in a styrofoam crusher that we compact, and we're now selling styrofoam to China, so they can sell the styrofoam back as picture frames to us. But that would have been the only waste stream going into the landfill. But now we don't have the composting, so certain parts of what we do end up in your landfill. What we can at least sell back to other fishermen for bait. But also, we do have some wet waste. And we kept getting containers that had holes in them. It was a problem. We kept asking for containers without holes. And meanwhile, because that we're leaking water into the area where the compactor, the trash bins go, and they would send somebody by they wanted to clean up before we got there, and wanted to charge us $300 for their cleanup because the city couldn't provide us with a bin that didn't have holes in it. And I just basically not asking a question, but more of a comment about the difference in services that we received up in Santa Barbara in this regard. And whether or not there's anything that's going to be done, I guess maybe to further recycling or reusing any sort of waste in the system here at Oxnard.
Turn it into a question, didn't you?
Yeah.
No, I will tell you, we just took it over. It's been a year now, 1 year. And so we have lots of room to grow right and to make sure we do a far better job with recyclables. So I guess what I would just like for you personally, I'd like to hear your story. So I'd like to hook up with you because you got a couple stories now. Because we just need, that's not acceptable. We just need to do that better. So I think, talk to me, you know, if you're gonna send notes to emails to my staff members, I just as soon I get a little copy on that, hey, I got this issue, I got that issue. It's gonna help us get better. Sometimes I am the person that coordinates between all of these people right here. So if you're getting moved from one to the other, well, actually it's Elizabeth and I, but I am the one person that looks at the whole organization, and a lot of times they're locked in on their own specific profession or the answers they need to give you only. So please communicate that to me because I'd love to hear that story a little more. And I can guarantee you I got people hungry to do better. They're hungry to do better. And it's going to take a little time. It's a culture that hasn't worked for the past few years that we're trying to switch around, and so that you don't get holes for that. Doesn't make sense. So I'd like to talk to you.
Thank you. I have two questions. Should I just stand up?
They're coming from the back.
My name is Jesse Calvillo. I'm here representing AGQ Labs. So we just came here about 3 years ago. We've been around 20 years, but we decided to open up a lab, and we chose Oxnard. It took us 2 years, 2 very, very painful and very, very, very expensive years to get our permitting done. And just to give you an idea, it cost us about $3 million just to build the laboratory that we built there on 5th and Rice. We're a company that goes out, you know, we work in the ag space, we go out to fields, help growers get the best out of the land, at the same time kind of helping them protect the environment. and we can test their fruit to make sure it's safe to eat after they've grown it. My two questions are, now that you guys are getting together as a city and saying, hey, what can we do, to do this better? What are you guys doing in terms of looking at other cities and best practices? Who are you looking to copy or to at least look for ideas? That's my first question. And my second question is, what are you guys doing in terms of pairing with the local kind of education environment? So the local community colleges and the universities, we have some great institutions here locally. And one of the issues, besides the very, very long permitting process that it took us to go through, was really finding an appropriate labor pool. And we're a city that, we're a company, I've hired, in 3 years, I think we have 36 individuals that we've hired here, and range from very kind of basic jobs to very highly qualified jobs. We have always come to the table wanting to pair with the city, wanting to work with you guys, saying, what can we do to get involved? And we had Elizabeth to help us through some of the painful times, but we're not sure what we can do to get involved and to help. But we're very curious about what you guys are doing, because the truth is that we're growing and we're not so sure that we want to stay here in Oxnard. I love it here, it's great. The people in the city are great, but as a company, it's been really difficult. So the two questions were just who are you guys looking for and the education.
Tax certificate process, not only the process itself, but the cost of it, and we're investigating that. Tammy's putting some things online that should help small businesses, so we're going to continue to look at those issues and how we can make improvements.
Actually, good afternoon. My name is Selena Zacarias, and I have the pleasure of serving as your Director of Community Government Relations for Cal State Channel Islands. And to this gentleman up front, as well as anybody else in the audience, one thing that we are seeking is always internships for our students to make sure that they're getting that hands-on experience. So please, if you like my business card at the end of the evening, I'd be glad to get that out. But also is thank you to the City of Oxnard, because for the last 3 years we have held our Science Carnival here, because it's really critical that those science careers, that we reach out to the younger kids to get them stimulated and motivated to go into science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And the city's been a great partner in doing that. And we usually hold it at the end of October, early November, and we get about 2,000 to 3,000 kids out from the local elementary schools to get them thinking about those particular careers. So if there are businesses here tonight that were also interested in perhaps doing a science experiment for that evening, or robotics experiment along those lines. And also we're adding actually the arts now this next year. So please feel free to reach out to me, and I think that working together we can make a big difference, especially when it comes to the educational component. Thank you.
I was just going to add one more outreach effort. We did do the forums in September and October of 2014 to get feedback from the development community in the downtown about ways that we can improve. And I think one of the other lines of communication I just want to open up to each and every one of you is, as you go through the process, if you do have a problem, it's just to let that manager even directly know. I know today I reached out to a developer that I hadn't heard from a while, just to get that feedback and that communication. That I reach out to Elizabeth probably every other week to see what type of problems she might be encountering, but we want to hear that feedback, and we're open to that, because if we don't hear it directly from you, we don't even know that it's a problem. I mean, we think that we do our job well every day. So I just want to open that line of communication. My contact information is on that list. And like I said, I speak with Elizabeth often, but anyone that gets stuck in our process, whether it be planning or building or on the licensing side, from the manager level, we want to help you through that. We want you to be here in the city. So thank you.
If I could just steal this and just add to this. So I am not a planner. I'm not an engineer, not a police chief, not a fire chief. I don't do anything that these people do. But I do know, because economic development is very important to me, that planners at the lower levels, they have codes to make sure everybody follows. And it's a very safe place to just say you have to follow that code, like 2% or whatever that is. That's why, so what Ashley said to you, and maybe you've always been invited to do that with Matt too, but call these three. I'm proud of them right now, because we've made a conscious decision to start turning the ship around as an organization. And it's a big ship. It's been run a certain way for quite some time. And so we do want to do exactly what Ashley just said, is call them. Then you get to call me. But do call them, give them a shot, because again, you've got people at low levels that's a risk to use that, I don't want to call it common sense, but it's a safe place to follow the rules. It's us as leaders that have to say, you know what, common sense tells me, you know, we could probably do this, this works a little better, let's move the process on. That's just the nature of the beast with being a governmental organization. So it is important not to give up when you get hit at the lowest levels. And I'm gonna say one other thing based on your question, which was just great. We're gonna look at all of our impact fees, user fees, and we're gonna have an outside group look at those, because we need to be competitive in Oxnard. I don't want people saying, you know, if you're gonna say it's gonna be $3 million, I want you to know it's gonna be $3 million, other than unless you live in the middle of the Central Valley where I came from. It's a lot hotter there. You don't get the ocean. But the whole point to that is we need to make sure we're competitive. We do need to make sure that we're fair. We're fair to those that live here, we're fair to the business, to all. And so we're gonna look at all those. We're gonna hire a consultant to make sure our impact fees aren't too high, our user fees are appropriate. We're gonna do all of that. It's kind of a complete cleansing of our organization. A lot of things that happened, things got real stale. Policies, procedures, fees, we never really looked at them completely and overall. So we're gonna have people do that so we can find out how we compete, what's best practices, and all the above. And these folks are already starting that process. It's just we don't want to take forever to be in process. And so it's going to take probably 12 months here to roll out a bunch of new processes, user fee, impact fees, to where we can really justify those. So we're on our way. Stick with us. Don't be thinking about leaving. Don't be thinking about leaving. And do go ahead. Feel free to let us know. We understand we're trying to change, but I think Ashley said it really well. Tell us. Tell us. We know we're not perfect. We know we're far from perfect. What means something to you? That's important to us.
Good. What type of relationship does the city have or has developed with venture capitalists and venture capitalist law firms about bringing businesses into the city?
I can answer that.
It's mighty quiet. I mean, good point, and I think that's part of the mission for the future, is to improve on that. But I think Elizabeth's going to tell me how we do that.
We've actually reached out to venture capitalists specifically for new startup type of businesses. We haven't done it for larger development, but there hasn't been as strong of a venture capitalist market in the last few years, so quite frankly, we haven't really been focusing on that so much in the past few years.
Because there's a venture capitalist law firm right here in Westlake that hosts quarterly meetings with venture capitalists and business owners and startup companies that could be starting companies here in Oxnard instead of other places in the 101 corridor.
Yeah, and actually, we are looking, we applied for a grant. We haven't heard back from the federal government yet on it, but we applied for a grant specifically for an incubator program, and that's when we'd be reaching out to the venture capitalists. It's an incubator program for probiotic and nutraceutical companies. So that, and I know what venture capitalists, in fact, one of the principals used to be on our board, so we know them and we've worked with them before.
Hi, my husband Roger and I own a company, consumer electronics company for the last 35 years in Ventura County. Anyway, I have a question, maybe a comment. Do y'all ever talk to the legislators about the absolute hostile legislation to business that they're passing? They just passed 900 new bills in 2014. Do y'all talk to the candidates and the legislators when they come into town about maybe, being less hostile to business with legislation? course, ADA is a nightmare for all of us, but do you have a lively discussion with the candidates? Just, then I'll make my comment and hopefully you guys can answer. Our assembly person here, Doss Williams, voted for every job-killing bill last year. Our congresswoman that just got elected got last place in the congressional scorecard of the Club for Growth scorecard. Last place. I mean, I don't know if that's some kind of a weird badge of courage from Santa Monica, but it's very hard on California businesses to stay in business, let alone Oxnard. This is the bigger ship, you know, and I'm wondering, are you talking to the legislators about helping stop chasing business out of California at such a fast pace?
Thank you.
Colorado, Canada, wherever you want to go. You come here and you go, well, how does anybody do business here? Congratulations to all of you doing business in California. I shouldn't say that. I love it here. I love it in California. So I guess I would say we do have a legislative liaison. We do have lobbyists. The city actually has lobbyists in both at federal level and state level. I've only been here 10 months. I tell you, we've already talked with a number of legislators. I'm going to be candid with you. Yes, we do, but not a lot. Again, you've looked, and I told you who up here does economic development, and we all point over here. And so it's your voice is heard right through here with Edco, but we do indeed go and communicate with our legislators. I'm going to be candid with you. When I meet a legislator, they know one thing, and that I get a paycheck to argue with them. And you don't. You're the business owners. You make the difference. I tell you, it's tough. It's a tough environment in California. There's just no doubt. I'm so proud of all of you and want you to stay and do more. But that's why we got to do ours right. And I don't know, Kimberly, I know you do keep in tabs and that, so you want to comment?
And so my background, I work for a congressional representative, Brad Sherman, who is located in the Woodland Hills area. And I have a background really in politics. My entire family's been involved with politics for a lot of years, and I do know a lot of the legislators. But I will say that one of the bills that hurt businesses and redevelopment in particular was AB 26, and that is the bill that ended redevelopment. And while many people thought that, oh, that's a redevelopment problem, they forgot that there is a huge component of business retention and business attraction that goes along with redevelopment. And so we reached out to every legislator we could think of. We did everything in our powers to keep redevelopment in place. And as a result of it coming to an end, it's actually had a negative impact on our business community as well. So we do communicate, we do constantly remind these folks that we need to restore an economic development piece back into California. Otherwise, they're going to kill businesses, and we're not going to be able to be successful as a state or individual cities without the appropriate legislation being in place that helps us with the economic development for our communities.
I think if I can just add this to it, I think it's really important as a community to do this, and that's, I'm at arm's length away from Elizabeth, but she has a board of business people. And the city does fund a significant portion or does fund Edco. That's really important, that you know that you have a voice that has its own board that speaks for business. And although we are partners in this, we're still government. And so I think that it's a great point, but your best fight has to go right through your Edco and your business board, and we support that. We support that as a city. We'll do what we can, but believe you me, we're, the drought. So now 25% reductions, and you know who has to come down on you to make sure you meet those 25% with not a dollar on that? It's the city. We got to figure out how to enforce a 25% reduction. So a lot of times we're just fighting, hey, how are you going to help us pay for all these mandates that you put on government itself? So we do spend a lot of time with that, not as much on business. That's why this is so important, this relationship between government and Edco.
And I'd just like to say, it's actually OPIA that does the advocacy. The one issue that OPIA is looking into is the ADA, because I'd have to say by far the biggest issue that companies are having has to do with ADA, and unfortunately, as someone pointed out, the city is in a predicament. They can't just say, oh, well, you don't need to do it, because everyone is set up for liability. But I have a little story, and actually I worked with Rob Rashanian on this, and he was very open to being able to work with this, but here's what happened. We actually contacted the ADA in Washington, D.C., that you would think would be the ultimate authority, because it is the ADA in Washington, D.C., and it's a governmental agency, and they didn't have a problem with what this business wanted to do and did not say it would have to be subject to ADA improvements. Unfortunately, the state said it did. And so when the state of California actually has more strict regulations than the ADA in Washington, D.C., who is actually putting these laws in place to protect people with disabilities, clearly the state is actually enforcing even at a higher level, and that's actually something that I think we need to hear from the business community about all of these stories. We know about the helipad, but we need to hear about all of these stories, because this is actually something that I think is going to just get worse now that individually people can get sued. And we're going to have to wrap this up pretty quickly because it's almost 8 o'clock, so just a couple more questions.
I have another text question.
How do you get these text questions right now?
Come randomly.
It's magic.
I know, it's just magic. So in follow-up, I believe it was probably to Jesse's question earlier, is how open is the city in supporting an entrepreneurial startup environment, just as Santa Barbara has been able to grow into, as the interest in our younger generation is growing to build ideas into startups?
Where are you getting? Never mind. Those are, I wanted to say this. I'm glad the question entered into this. Is we think we have a very exciting project out at Ormond Beach in the wetland area, working with our universities to do bioag and natural resources to have a research center built there. Is that a dream? It is. Is it potential to have great liability? Well, who's got some of the best ag land in this country and is right on a wetlands, who looks at natural resources, which is the ocean? And so we think, and we'd like to talk to our collegiate partners, and we actually have the UC system, CU Colorado University. UC system has some interest in that. And so how do I feel about that? Exciting news is great, and we need to push it. We've met, Ashley and Elizabeth and I met with Kristen at the port last week, and through the strike at the other ports, we had more business here, which people now say, hey, maybe we should run through here instead of through Los Angeles or one of the other ports. Well, so what did we do? We sat down over there and said, where's land, where's property, what kind of interest is there? And so I guess, I don't want to say all is bad here. We are really trying to kind of get the engine started from our side to be very engaged. And I'm sorry, Kimberly was with us too in that room. So the port's got interest in building new businesses, doing more processing right out of the shipping lanes. $6.1 million integrated into downtown. What would that be for? How about incubators? How about startup businesses? How about creativity? How about innovation? Absolutely. That's exactly what we should be doing. Let's come out of this. There's new development going on. Housing is kind of restarted. We've got businesses more interested again in the area where we came out of the recession, so now's the time. And I think we're going to look as an organization for internships in our organization. So should business. And somehow we just have to get re-engaged together, business and city. And the goal would be is I have three young adults that don't think like me. And their minds are very creative. And they're probably, are they texting you? That stuff?
It could be, I don't know where they're.
They're well beyond texting though. They're in the clouds and other places. I think the bottom line to this is it's time to make sure we continue not only to serve our current businesses, but make sure we're looking at what our kids are going to do when they graduate, and those that are young adults, to make sure they can stay here and live this beautiful life that we have here in Oxnard. So don't give up. We have some good, interesting things, at least on paper. Now it's going to take teamwork to push them off of the paper and start really seeing some of that engaged. So I will just simply, you can ask me more questions, but the Edco board, I've had a chance to meet with them, a couple of them. Councilmember McDonald left, at least he's not sitting there anymore. He's a board member. We're working hard. We're going to work as hard as we can to re-up our partnership with Edco, and they've stepped up nicely. And Elizabeth's been doing a great job for you guys, and we can only do better. There's not much room to go the other way.
Okay, last question?
Expound a little more on your, maybe if that relates to getting more of the Oxnard Airport back, getting businesses back with the airport, the airline service back.
Well, it was identified where the incubator would be, which isn't near the airport. But that was just to do the feasibility study. So it actually can look at other areas. If this one is granted, then it would be to do the feasibility study. And then if it's proven feasible, then we can actually apply for additional funds to actually build an incubator. And we can look at the airport, and especially if we could give a great big round of applause to the city staff. I also want to thank Jennifer Foytek and Chad Guy with Edco. If you haven't had a chance to meet them, please do, and they worked very hard on this as well. So I think Greg would like to say a couple of parting words.
I kind of feel bad. This is what my staff meeting looks like too, right, guys? I sit and yap the whole time, and they're like, "Really? Can we get out of here?" Look at their faces. Know who they are. Do not feel. Please feel free to contact them. Feel free to contact them with issues. Obviously, Elizabeth does a great job with that, but we got some new team members. Certainly, some commitments that they've made that we're going to spring out here in May. That it's all about customer service. It's about how are we going to get to yes, even if it's a no. How do we look for solutions instead of just talk to the hand? So we're all in. I hope you're all in to make this better. And I'm just pleased that you took the time. Thank you all for being here. I kind of feel bad. I should have made you all give a 5-minute speech. But dedicated folks, people, they're really dedicated to kind of change our environment and our culture. So. Be with us on that, stand with us, partner with us. We're going to make a difference here. Thank you.
Before everyone goes, if there were any other questions that you didn't think about at the time, you can email me and I can forward them to the appropriate person. And if you would also like the contact information, because the sheets that went out just had names, you can email me and I see no no's from the city staff. You can email me and I will give you their home addresses. Lastly, I wanted to point out that KADY recorded this whole event and we really appreciate that, and they will have it on tomorrow, so if you'd like to take a look at it and watch it. So again, thank you business community for stepping out here. I really appreciate it, and hopefully we will be able to do these on a yearly basis. Thank you.